Well, hello there, and welcome back to thy channel. It has been a rather short period of time since my last video, so it is safe to say I have either lost my mind or I've become motivated once again to do this channel. I probably have lost my mind, and it'll probably be 3 months before the next video comes out, but we'll see. Anyway, if this is your first time here on the Noctilucant channel, we talk about dark and miserable music for dark and miserable people. So if that's your cup of tea, or if you just happen to like a lot of music that falls underneath that post-industrial umbrella, then you're in the right place. Anyway, once again, we're going to be doing a collection update. This is some stuff that I've gotten within like the past 2 to 3 months, maybe actually a month ago only for one of them. But a bunch of stuff that I think you'll find to be interesting, and well, no more dilly-dallying, let's get into the beer of the day. Yeah, so this one comes to you from Untitled Art, and it is the Chocolate Malt Amore Pastry Salt Stout. It has been sitting in my fridge for a couple weeks now. I've been eagerly waiting to try it, so let's do it, man. Yeah. So it's a stout, so you already know it's going to be black and hopefully delicious. This one's for you, Joel, from Insectarium. I know you love the dark beers, so put this on your radar if it's good, which we will find out in a few seconds here. Untitled Art does not mess around. They make incredible beers every time. If you guys are out there drinking as you watch this video, please let me know what you're listening to. So, cheers, everyone. Wow, it's fucking good, man. Liquid candy. Oh my god, I still remember when like I was 20 or maybe 18 years old drinking PBR and shit like that. Amazing how far beers have come. Anyway, to start things off, we're gonna talk about Current 93's album, Island. So Current 93 is a band that probably doesn't need any introduction, but I'm going to do that anyway. The band has existed since about 1982, 1983. Throughout the years, they have explored various different avenues of music. They're most well known for establishing the neo-folk sound in the late 80s, but they've also put out noise, industrial, dark ambient records, again, various neo-folk sounding records, piano-based music, keyboard-based music, and what's interesting about Current 93 is the band has always been centered around its sole member David Tibet, with various session musicians filling out various roles. And as such, and since there's never really been a solid lineup, every record sounds different, and although there may be a common sound and theme, none of them sound exactly alike. Island, originally released in 1991, is a very unique record in that it's a sound Current 93 only explored one single time. It is a very heavily synth-based, for a lack of any better word, I would describe this as dark wave music. And I wish I could say it sounds like something like Lycia or, something of that, but I don't think Lycia even existed in 1991 yet. So this is very unique sounding in my eyes. It's very ethereal, very melodic sounding, and very just sort of celestial and stuff like that. And it's basically these, very ethereal, very maybe almost kind of spooky sounding at times, and very highly atmospheric synths intermingled with David Tibet's oftentimes very, very unique voice. Now, I've been a fan of Current 93 for well over 20 years at this point, but this album was always hard to get for one reason or another. But about 2 months ago, I tracked down a copy for like $20, and I was like, yes, finally. And my running theory on why it's kind of unique or hard to find is that because Bjork, yes, the pop singer Bjork, she does backing vocals on the first track, and so this album was recorded in Iceland from, I think, about, the late 80s up until when it was released in 1991. The majority of the music is composed and created by a man whose name is Hilmar Orn Hilmarsson. Years later, he would do quite a bit of soundtrack work, and he also worked with the Icelandic band Sigur Rós. But here, I guess he was still a relatively unknown musician. He composed all the music here, other than a few roles here and there. David Tibet, of course, wrote all the lyrics, and the current 93 and David Tibet is unquestionably one of the most fascinating bands that has ever existed. David Tibet himself has lived. He was born in Nepal, and in Southeastern Asia, I want to say, or somewhere around there, near China. But he's of English. He's originally an English guy. His father just was in the army, and that's where he grew up, and that's where his father was stationed for a period of time. So he grew up there, and then he went back to England. But then he's kind of always just bounced around, especially throughout the 80s. He lived in, I think, India for a short period of time. Then he moved to Iceland, and then I want to say a few other places. He seems to have a very addictive personality based on what I've read about him. So if he goes to some place or he gets into something, he goes 100% into it. And he moved to Iceland in the late 80s. But before that, he was living somewhere in England with, in some sort of house, or maybe it was some sort of like punk rock squat of sorts, because he was living with a bunch of eccentrics like Ian Reid from Fire and Ice, Douglas Pierce from Death in June, John Balance from Coil, a bunch of other really eccentric musicians, poets, and junkies, and all kinds of stuff. They were doing a lot of acid and just making a lot of really, really fascinating and interesting music. And this album is just a real treasure. It's, like I said, very unique to their discography, and heavily keyboard based. And I guess for whatever reason, David really hates this album because he feels like it sounds very dated. I don't think so at all. I think it's just very atmospheric and very just beautiful, and just, as I said, very just very celestial and ethereal sounding, and it's great. And I've heard people complain about David's voice before too, but I think he sounds great here. I mean, he's got a bit more reverb added to his voice than usual, so maybe that kind of evens things out. But I think it's great. But anyway, I'm just so happy to have this in my collection. It's such a good album. I have this special memory. Many years ago, I downloaded like the bulk of like the current 93 discography, and had this album burnt to a disc CDR. And the first time I listened to it, I was actually like driving through a snowstorm. So I always sort of like, I guess, associate this album with snow. And it's definitely an album for the colder months because it has that sort of cold synth sound to it. But anyway, phenomenal album, Current 93, Island. Alright, continuing on, we're going to talk about the Finnish band Tenhi. As you can see here, I have quite an extravagant little package here. This is the deluxe 2-CD version of their new album, Velkoma. So, Tenhi is a long-running Finnish, for lack of any better term, neo-folk band, but that would be doing them a severe injustice to just call them a neo-folk band. A more accurate description would be to call them a neoclassical, folk, chamber music, dark progressive. And I realize that's a mouthful, but that's a better way to describe them. They're a very unique band that, I've never heard anything like it or even close to it, but they often have a very dark and melancholy kind of sound to their music. But there's always sort of this, well, maybe not always, but sometimes there's a lot of like this sort of looming brightness or hope in their songs. And they work within this sort of framework of like progressive music, but like don't expect this to sound like progressive rock or progressive metal. I guess that's my point. It just has this sort of progressive touch, and I feel like when you listen to your music, you'll understand that. But I first came across this band about, must have been 21, 22 years ago. I don't recall how I came across them, but I absolutely loved it. It was instant love, and I think it was one of those bands that early on just sort of cemented my love for the Finns and just a lot of the wonderful music that was coming out of that country. I have this really special memory of listening to their first album. It was a snowy evening, and me and a friend were going somewhere. I don't recall where, but if it was the early 2000s, I would have been in my early 20s, and back then I had a bit of a drinking problem, so more than likely we were driving to or from a bar, which is, what a terrible equation, a snowstorm and drinking heavily, yeah. But anyway, I always, again, much like that Kurt 93 album, I always sort of have come to sort of, you know, put this band on, put them on snowy evenings, or just, you know, if I'm driving around snow or something like that. You know, I actually, quite a few years ago when, you know, Walkmans were still a thing, I would go, like, hiking through the forest on snowy mornings, or, you know, near, around dusk and stuff like that. And it just was really magic, and, like, sort of, it just would really transport you to this really special place, I guess. And, you know, the fact that I've been to Finland twice now, I mean, it's been over 10 years now, but I really just, when I went there back in 2011, 2012, I absolutely loved it, and really hope now that I'm married and I can take my wife back there, and we can experience it together, and hopefully under more sober terms, because when I was there back in 2011, 2012, it was, whatever. Anyway, we were very drunk, me and my buddy that went there. It was a good time though, but I fell in love with Finland, fell in love with the people, the culture, and just the fact that they had like a lot of admiration for nature. And growing up in America and just seeing how we don't respect nature here, and how it's all just about working people to death, and just continuing to destroy green spaces, and continuing to just build more and more shit. If there's a field, they're gonna build some shit. And anyway, I'm gonna get off my soapbox about that. I'm not gonna look like a tree hugger, even though I kind of am. But Tenhi makes very gorgeous, very just overwhelmingly beautiful music that, again, I can't really, you know, say it's this or that. You just have to experience it. And I have listened to this album multiple times since I got it a few months ago, and it's just, it's become one of those albums I just love to put on and just lay down, turn the lights off, and just totally immerse myself in it, you know? I mean, a big problem with music these days is that people do not immerse themselves in music like they used to. People used to always sit back and relax and enjoy music. Now, we listen to music when we're fucking around on our phones, when we're doing stuff on the computer, when we're doing normal household chores. That's because music is so readily available. We can connect our phones to a Bluetooth speaker. What ultimately happens, and I realize this myself, is that you don't take in the music as you should be. But this is a band, this is an album that you have to really focus in, and that's important because, like, I don't think too many songs like immediately will jump out at you, because there is such a sort of a progressive and sort of delicate nature to their music that you have to focus on it. Another interesting characteristic of their music too is both going all the way back to their very first EP in 1998. They've always wrote all their lyrics in Finnish. They have always wrote all their song titles in Finnish, and I'm safe to say they're not going to write in English, which is fantastic. I mean, yeah, would it get them more fans? Perhaps, but I give them a lot of props for continuing to sing in Finnish. And even though the translations are oftentimes in the booklets, I've never really bothered to read them. I miss when music had mystery. I miss when, like, the identities of these special musicians wasn't, like, readily available on Facebook or Instagram. I didn't get that intimate look into the people's lives, or even that silly or goofy, because, like, I grew up, like, adoring musicians. They were my gods, you know? So I miss the days when music was sacred, and there was a certain air of mystery around it, I guess. And these guys, to the best of my knowledge, they don't have, like, Facebook. I mean, if they do, fine, whatever. I've never looked it up, but I don't want them to be a band where I know anything too deep or special about them. Although a friend of mine that lives in Finland, he told me one of the guys from this band used to be his landlord, and I thought that was kind of funny because, like, I would assume these guys would be involved in art or something like that, or that's how they'd make their living, but no, one of them's a landlord and he used to be his tenant, so I thought that was kind of funny. But, you know, realistically, people don't make money from art, they make money from having a normal job, even in Finland, so, yeah. Anyway, this is the deluxe 2-disc set. The album as it is about 70 minutes long, and then there's a second disc which has another 12, 13 minutes of music. So you get about 83, 84 total minutes on this album, and it's just breathtaking. So there's a look at the front cover. All of the artwork as well is done by one of the members in the band, and it's just really beautiful artwork, very special. So hopefully you guys can see this well enough. Try. There goes the CD. Crap. Well, I guess I can't show you that. Here. This art book here is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. It's literally like the size of like, I don't know, a 10-inch record, maybe a 12-inch record. Very interesting, very big, and like as I said, here's lyrics for both the English. No, it isn't just a. Never mind. I think it is just a Finnish lyrics in here. There's another one about drawings. Very special and unique drawings. Very lovely. I would love, if possible, to have like some of that artwork framed on my wall or something like that. I've really kind of wanted to change this room where I don't have all the dumb band posters. I wanted to have just more original artwork from artists on the walls, as opposed to like Impale Nazarene posters from Metal Maniacs from 20 years ago. Some more lyrics again. In fact, I could have swore there was English lyrics in here, but I guess I'm not correct. I don't know. I know there are other albums do at any rates, but I'm going to skip past some of these lyrics. Here's some more of the artwork. Yes, very nice. Looks like charcoal, perhaps. I don't know. More lyrics. A little bit of the band members and their roles in the band. There's some more artwork here. So as you can see, this thing is quite nice, quite big. A picture of the band, I guess, in rehearsal or something of the sort. The drummer. Yeah. But yeah, you know, we got lots of piano in this music, lots of acoustic guitars, drums, violins. It's just wonderful, and no real easy way to describe it. I really hope at some point in time the band decides to tour again too, because they've only done a few tours, I think, around Finland and so on and so forth, and that's where the CDs would fit, but the ones in the CD player and the other one fell on the ground. Anyway, that's Tenhi. I've ranted for enough. Definitely check it out. Just great stuff here. Alright, continuing on, we're going to talk about one of my all-time favorite bands. This is Soul Invictus, and their so far last album to date, 2018's Necropolis. So, Soul Invictus is the long-running work of musician Tony Wakeford, who is, much like Death in June and much like Kurt 93, is often joined with various session members to bring the songs to life, with each session member having various roles. But most of the songs are, generally wrote by Tony Wakeford. Tony has a musical history that dates back to, I believe, about 1977, when he joined a far left-leaning punk band known as Crisis. And Crisis was okay as far as, late 70s punk was concerned. They had a couple 7-inch singles and 10-inch singles, I think. I don't think they ever actually put out a full-length album, but they were later on gathered on a couple different compilations, which, yeah, they're okay. And then in 1980, Tony Wakeford and Douglas Pierce formed Death in June along with Patrick Legas, and, well, I guess a lot of people know that Death in June originally started out as more of a post-punk band, and they slowly traversed into being one of the first neo-folk bands. Interestingly, Soul Invictus is also one of the first neo-folk bands, along with Kurt 93. Anyway, so Tony stuck around with Death in June for about 3 years. He got kicked out, and then in 1985 he did his own solo project called Above the Ruins, which was more kind of post-punky, dark rock kind of stuff, which, again, is okay. And then in 1987 he did some session work with Kurt 93 on their album Swastikas for Naughty, and then in 1988 he put out the first Soul Invictus album, with Ian Reid and Carl Blake as members. And since then, he has put out quite a few albums. Necropolis is, I guess, officially the last Soul Invictus album, because after he put this one out, he decided he was done with neo-folk and he was going to reactivate his old punk band, Crisis, which is a really peculiar choice. I'm not sure why anyone would want to see a mostly obscure, not particularly great punk band from the 70s reactivated, but here we are. Yeah, that's what he's doing. So anyway, Necropolis turned out to be the very last album he put out, and it is quite a good album. Tony has often referred to his music as folk noir music, which is, I guess, is a more clever way of, kind of just avoiding the typical neo-folk tag. But I think the reason why he uses that tag is because he was probably the first neo-folk act to have a much more, I guess, like neoclassical elements, lots of violins and cello. And when I first heard Soul Invictus about, probably like 22 years ago now, through the albums In the Rain and The Blade, I was just floored by it. I was like, this is so dark and atmospheric and just melancholy and miserable sounding. But then, it wasn't metal at all, and I was just used to listening to, metal bands that created that sound. So to hear something, not metal and completely different was really special to me. And their old albums, everything they put out in the 80s throughout the 90s, have a really profound, place in my heart, and I'll always love them. And I now that I realize that Prophecy Productions has put out a re-release of about everything they have put out over the years, I'm definitely going to pick it up over time. So anyway, yeah, this is the last album, and it's really quite good. It's, neo-folk, neo-classical, but of course a big challenge with every Soul Invictus album is Tony Wakeford's voice. He just doesn't have, to say that his voice is bad is an understatement. He has no range. He should never have been the singer in this band, and I can only assume his reasoning for continuing to be the singer throughout the years was just because he wrote very personal lyrics that he just felt like only he could deliver, because maybe they had a deeper meaning. That's something I can figure. I don't really know. But it's been even to he's made jokes about his own voice, about how bad it is, and it's a mystery to me why at no point in time he ever got singing lessons or anything like that. His voice, it's an acquired taste, to say the least, because it's almost like, it's maybe a bad, I don't know how to really describe it, but it's it would be like pure noise music intermingled with some melody. His voice is that bad, because there's always other guest singers or choirs on the albums that do a phenomenal job with singing. Then you have his singing come in and it's just oh god, but it's just the music is so beautiful and sad and just atmospheric that it hooks you in anyway, or at least for me it does. And I got into this band when I was going through a very, very depressive part of my life, and it just really resonated with me. I was perpetually depressed. I was drinking a lot. I was smoking a lot of weed. It wasn't a good time. That was my early 20s, from the time I was about 19 to 24 years old, 25 maybe. It is what it is. I'm better sort of all these years later, but it was a special time, and that some days I wanted to fucking kill myself, but other times I was like, well, if I kill myself, I'll probably make some people sad, and then I won't be able to listen to all this lovely music I'm into either. So here we are, and in my 40s now, and still doing my best. So anyway, oh god, I ran too much in these videos sometimes. Anyway, really great album. If this really does turn out to be the last Soul Invictus album, I'm going to be a bit sad, but some very good songs in this album. It's different in that there's a lot of narration, and it seems to center around a lot of murder and corruption within London. Tony Wakeford views London as once the epicenter of Europe, which maybe it was, I don't really know, but it's sort of the overarching theme of the album is that London and England has turned to a fucking shithole. It's turned into a necropolis in more recent decades and years, and there's just all these little tidbits of narration that kind of drive the point home. Anyway, this, much like the Tenhi, was released by Prophecy Productions, and it comes in this more 7-inch looking packaging, hardcover book. So the reason why I wanted to get this was because when I ordered it from Bandcamp, there was only one copy left, but also because it was a bonus CD with some outtakes and alternative tracks, and there was several live tracks, and I was hoping the live tracks would be good, but they're just deplorable. If you think Tony's voice sounds bad on a professional recording, you haven't heard anything until you hear how he sounds live. even so, if he came to town, I would do everything in my power to go see him. So anyway, let's take a closer look at it. So much like the other one, the CDs would go in there, but it's plain in stereo. There's the classic Soul Invictus sigil, I guess you will. There's the man himself, miserable old bastard, Tony Wakeford. Some more artwork here. What else? That's some really nice artwork on this one. I really like it. So no regrets picking up this hardcover book here, in spite of the fact that the bonuses weren't particularly great. Of course, you get all the lyrics. The first time I listened to this, I was just following the lyrics, which is what you should do when you get a new album. You shouldn't distract yourself in any way. Lots of nice artwork here. More lyrics. Yes. Yeah, pictures. I kind of like how it's sort of like, I don't know how we're gonna be able to tell, but it sort of has like a drawn picture intermingled into like a real landscape shot or whatever have you. Yeah, I thought that was really clever the way they did that. Yeah, very cool. Lovely, very cool artwork. There's quite a few pages, as you can see here. I have things to say. Yeah. Oh yeah, you get all the artwork and la-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di. Yes. But interesting characteristic about Soul Invictus' music over the years too is that they have that like neoclassical and neo-folk sound, they've always or oftentimes had some more abrasive industrial textures intermingled into the music too, which is interesting. So there's the picture of Tony and his wife, Renee. Other pictures of some of the members. A nice surprise I had when I got this album was that I found that Don Anderson from Igalock does some guest guitar on this album, which was a nice surprise, really cool. I'm a huge Igalock fan, of course. Another picture of the members. I guess they were going for sort of a steampunk or old-timey 1800s-ish English look or something. I don't know. Some pictures of the choir recording vocals for the album. Really, so yeah, pictures. So I think we have actually gotten to the end. Yeah, Soul Invictus is a very important band to me, and I have contemplated getting their sigil tattooed on me, so if you see that on me randomly in some future video, well, you know that I finally committed, because I've been thinking about it for like 20, well, I mean, not 20 years, but maybe like 10 years. So anyway, Soul Invictus, Acropolis. So anyway, this last album we're going to talk about is extraordinarily random, but I got it for $3, so regardless of if it's great, bad, or just okay, it doesn't really matter. About a month or so ago, my friend, whose name is Joel, he does a, not the Joel from Insectarium, just for clarity here. My friend Joel, he does a sort of a punk and hardcore radio show, and he invited me on as a guest, but before we actually did the recording, we went to a local record store called We Buy Records, and I found this little gem for $3. It is Kitaro's Silk Road. Yeah. Does anyone out there know who Kitaro is? Well, in case you don't, Kitaro is a long-running Japanese New Age musician. And I know what you're thinking, I know what you're gonna say, New Age, what the fuck is wrong with you? Well, okay. So, here's the thing about New Age music. Okay, a lot of New Age music, at least to my ears, is like, well, it's usually synth-based, it's usually very melodic, it's usually overtly happy sounding, and then it has rather sappy, sort of melancholy to it. I guess I would probably describe most New Age music, right? And, you know, when you think of New Age music, you probably think of, like, I don't know, Vangelis, Enya, Enigma, Deep Forest, Jean-Michel Jarre, I don't know, bullshit like that. And I'm not really into any of those artists. I've heard them, I've owned some albums from some of those artists years ago, but Kitaro, on the other hand, I don't know, man. Something about this guy's music, man. So I first probably discovered Kitaro about 13, 14 years ago. I used to go to Barnes & Noble bookstore, and I used to get a cup of coffee there, and I used to find a good book. I used to place myself somewhere and read it, and my reason for doing this is because it just brought me a certain sense of peace and relaxation, but I also was trying to attract a female bookworm, which I never successfully did. Fortunately, I then met my wife, who does enjoy reading books, but she prefers her e-reader as opposed to real books, which deeply saddens me because there's just something special about turning pages in a book, or, you know, same thing with putting an album on the turntable, or, you know, tapes or CDs. There's just something special about that as opposed to like queuing, you know, music up to your Bluetooth speakers. There's something special, and some people get it, some people don't. The few, the proud we are, and we will continue on this way more than likely to the end of our lives. Anyway, I'm really ranting at this point. Kitaro's Silk Road. This was originally released in the early 80s. Kitaro himself is, as I said, a long-running New Age musician. His musical career goes back to the early 70s when he joined a progressive rock band called the Far East Family Band, which I believe was formed in like 1965. And if I was willing to bet, I would say they were probably one of the first, if not the first, progressive rock band to come out of Japan. As it is, I am a huge fan of, well, mostly English progressive rock from about 70 to 75, maybe 76. I mean, bands like Genesis, Pink Floyd, Gentle Giant, I don't know, I'm forgetting something, but it's all, yeah, there's a lot of good records, and I've also heard like Italian progressive rock and Japanese progressive rock. I never really did too much for it, but English progressive rock, yeah, that's the fucking shit, man. So, that's how he started his career. And then sometime in the early 70s, while on tour with the Far East Family Band, he met Klaus Schulze, and Klaus Schulze just got him hooked on synthesizers, and then that's what he's done the rest of his life. So, Kitaro is a New Age musician. There's no doubt about it. He's won awards for it. He is a New Age musician, but I feel like that sort of overtly sappy melancholy that's oftentimes in New Age music is not as often present in Kitaro's music, because he has more of a, like, sort of a, you know, traditional Japanese music element intermingled. He's also had some very epic compositions, and it stands apart from a lot of those other ones, I think so anyway. And again, the fact that I found this for $3, man, I mean, what can you say, dude? I mean, there are some sappy moments on this. It's not by any means a masterpiece, but $3, man, I'll take it. What the hell, man? So, yeah, and then, you know, pretty standard looking vinyl record here. Nothing to really get, you know, overly excited about, but it was in decent condition. It played fine, no skips, so I don't know, it's probably just been sitting in someone's basement or attic for many years, and sure, I'll probably play it again in a couple of years or something. Yeah. Anyway, that'll about do it for this collection update, and thank you so much for watching. I hope you have learned something new here, or if I just managed to entertain you for a good 25-30 minutes, well then, hell yeah. I'd love to say that I'll be back in another couple weeks, but I'd probably be lying to you if I told you that. So I will see you when I see you. Cheers to beers. Cheers to you, my audience. Thank you to everyone that watches this. Well, that was just to my music. You know the drill. Like, share, and subscribe if you please. And see you next time. All right. Bye-bye. Listen to Kitaro. It's not